Hello students, in the last video we have studied the introduction of the structural organization in animal, that is the tissue part. So in this video we are going to start the different types of tissue. So the first type of tissue we have to study, this is the epithelial tissue. So let's just start the video and study that the characteristics of epithelial tissue. Then after that we'll move to the different types of epithelial tissue, right? So first of all, what is the epithelial tissue? What is the characteristics? First of all, let's just see. If it comes to the epithelial tissue, the term epithelium was given by one scientist and his name is Frederick Rush. Okay, so Frederick Rush is a scientist who first of all discovered the tissue epithelium. So he has given the term epithelium, discovered the epithelium, and he is the scientist who had given the term epithelial tissue. Now after that, let us move to the characteristics. See what happened to the epithelial tissue. This epithelial tissue origin, okay, so from which germinal layer it forms? It is formed from all the three germinal layers. That means it is also ectodermal, mesodermal and endodermal in nature. Okay, if it is ectodermal origin, it is known as epithelium. If it is mesodermal origin, that means it is mesothelium. And if it is endodermal in nature, then it is known as the endothelium, right? So it has the three origin, ectoderm, mesoderm as well as the endoderm. Next characteristic, see, if it comes to this type of tissue, it is made up of only the cells. Okay, so it is made up of only the cells. It is going to have very less intercellular space. Intercellular space means the cells, they are present attaching to each other. So that's why what happened, this cell will have very less space. Okay, so just see, the cells are present with very less or no intercellular space. Okay, what is the meaning? That suppose these are the cells, right? So in between the cells, this space is known as intercellular space. In case of epithelial tissue, there is very less intercellular space. That means in between the cells, there is very less or no intercellular space present. If you see another type of tissues like connective tissue is made up of cells also, different type of fibers also, and matrix also. The cells are present in a liquid medium, matrix. But if you see in case of epithelial tissue is made up of only the cells. The cells will form the whole tissue. Here we will not able to find any type of fiber, or if the liquid present, extracellular liquid is present also, that extracellular fluid concentration is very less, or there is no extracellular liquid also, because extracellular space is not present, intracellular space is not there, intercellular space is very less or no intercellular space, or that extracellular fluid which is present in that intercellular space also, it is very much less. Okay, remember that. Next one, see the next characteristics, that in case of epithelial tissue, this is always lined by, it is always lined by one basement membrane. Okay, now what is basement membrane? See, I have told you in the earlier video that this epithelial tissue can be classified under two categories, simple epithelium and compound epithelium, right? So simple epithelium will have only one layer and compound epithelium will have more than one layer. Now, what happened to this epithelial tissue? I have told in the earlier point that they have very less intercellular space. So if they don't have any intercellular space in between the cells, the space is not present, then the blood vessel cannot penetrate into the epithelial tissue, right? And if the blood vessel cannot go to the epithelial tissue, how the cell will survive? How the cell will get the nutrients? From where it will get the nutrients and the gases? Right? So that's why what happened, it is lined by a basement membrane, which is a non-cellular layer, from where just beneath the basement membrane we have another type of tissue, that is connective tissue. So connective tissue, blood vessel is a type of connective tissue. So blood vessel will give the nutrients to the basement membrane, and from the basement membrane the nutrients and the gases will diffuse into the upper layer, right? So here the basement membrane, remember why? Because these epithelial tissues are avascular in nature. Avascular in nature means this epithelial tissue do not allow any blood vessel to enter into it. If the blood vessels are not they are not allowed to get penetrated into the epithelial tissue, that means these cells will be devoid of, or they will not get the nutrients and the gases. How is it possible? A living cell have to get nutrients and have to get the oxygen, otherwise it will not get the energy so that it can undergo the normal metabolism process, right? So that's why what happened, the nutrients and gases that will be diffused into the epithelial tissues, cells, layers, by the basement membrane. Okay, so I can give you this difference here. See, it is going to have, suppose this is the epithelial tissue. Okay, so I'm drawing more than one layer. Suppose there are more than one layer of epithelial tissue. So epithelial tissue's lining can be more than one layer. It can be 50 layers, it can be more than that layers. But yes, what happened, as you go above, then the amount of nutrients get by the lining of the tissues, that will be very much less. So that's why the topmost or uppermost cell layers will not get the nutrients and gases. So that's why it become dead, right? It become, rather we can call this is the keratinized. Okay, so let's just see. So here we have the epithelial tissues lining. Just behind that, what we have the basement membrane, right? So we have a basement membrane, and this basement membrane also have two parts. What are they? See, this basement membrane, above we have a layer of mucopolysaccharide, one type of carbohydrate, that is mucopolysaccharide. Okay, so some type of inorganic biomolecules, organic biomolecules are present like mucopolysaccharide. It is forming the first layer of the basement membrane, and the next layer, this is made up of a protein fiber. Okay, it is basically going to have the collagen fiber. Okay, so collagen fiber, this is actually made up of one protein, that is collagen protein, that forms the fiber, right? So this basement membrane will have two layers. One is known as basal lamina, another is known as fibrous lamina. So above, which is made up of mucopolysaccharide, this is known as the basal lamina. Okay, and this layer, this is made up of these fibers, right? Collagen fiber, this is known as the fibrous lamina. Understand? So we are going to have two type of linings in the basement membrane. One is basal lamina, mucopolysaccharide. This type of biomolecules are formed from this epithelial tissue. And what I told, that this beneath, what we have connective tissue, right? And this connective tissue, the blood vessels are present. So this is suppose the connective tissue, right? So this is connective tissue, this is basement membrane, and this one is epithelial tissue. So from the connective tissue, the blood vessel will actually give the nutrients and gases, and that will be diffused into the basement membrane. Now this basement membrane will supply the nutrients nutrients. It will supply the nutrients to the above layer. That means it will go to this layer, and even in this epithelial tissue, if you get more than one layer, then you will get two different parts. What are they? One, this part, this is the single layer. Suppose this one only, this one. This is known as the dermis. Okay, and above that, how many layers you can have? You can have, and that will be known as epidermis, right? So we are going to have dermis and epidermis in the epithelial layer if it is compound or complex type of or striated type of epithelium. So what happens? See, from the connective tissue layer, the blood will transport the nutrient and gases to the basement membrane. Basement membrane get the nutrients and gases, and basement membrane will supply it to the above layer. So the dermis will get the nutrients and the gases. It will take the necessary amount of nutrients and gases, and remaining part will go to the above layer. Then this another layer, suppose the second layer will get the nutrients and gases. Excess nutrients and gases will go to the above layer, and this way the nutrients and gases will go to the above layer. So that's why amount of nutrients will go to the above layer will also start to get decreased. At one period of time, some of the cells, the topmost layer, will not get any nutrients and gases, right? So that's why what will happen? It will going to die, isn't that? So if it dies, then how is it possible a dead layer will be present? Yes, some of the cells, they will be died, and rather it get died, what it is going to modify into, see here, they will have a layer of keratin. Some proteins will be secreted by the epithelial tissue itself, and what is that? This will be known as the keratinized layer. Okay, so this is nothing but the keratin. That keratin is very much specific to us. Suppose on the body we have the keratin layer on the upper surface, so that it can prevent from the different type of microbial infections. Directly the pathogens cannot enter into our body. Why? Because we have the keratinized layer. So from the keratin layer, the microorganisms cannot penetrate into the next part. Okay, so this way actually we are going to have the basement membrane. Remember, basement membrane is very much important. Understand? So this is the next characteristics. Hope you have understood. Next characteristic C, in case of epithelial tissue, they are secretive in nature. Okay, so what is the meaning secretive in nature? Secretive in nature means it can secrete different type of secretions. See, I have told here this is the dermis layer. Just above the basement membrane, what we have? Dermis layer. So that dermis is provided with the different type of glands. So those glands will be either, suppose sweat gland, then sebaceous glands, oil gland. They're all present in the dermis layer. That is, this epithelial tissue, they can secrete. That is, they can secrete oil, right? Oil or sweat, etc. Okay. So how is it possible that this dermis layer can secrete those secretions? Isn't that? So that oil producing gland is known as sebaceous gland, and the sweat producing gland is known as sweat gland. So all the kinds of glands we have, all the kinds of glands, they will be nothing but a modified epithelial tissue. Remember that all glands are modified epithelial tissue, or simply epithelium. So if you have exocrine gland, endocrine gland, apocrine, merocrine, holocrine, all kinds of glands, those glands will be always modified epithelial tissue. So first of all, we'll see the different type of glands. Okay, so first of all, we'll see depending upon secretion. Okay, how it will secrete its secretion. We're going to have three types of glands, right? What are they? First type of gland is known as holocrine. Second type of gland is known as merocrine. And third type of gland is known as apocrine gland. Okay, so we are going to have three type of gland. Now just see the difference between all the three types of glands. Suppose this is the holocrine gland, it is going to have a lining of cell. Merocrine gland, see, it is also going to have some lining, and apocrine glands, it is also going to have a lining of epithelial tissue. Now, if it comes to the holocrine gland, remember what happened, how it can secrete its secretion. See, suppose the secretion is present here inside the cell. Now, what will happen whenever they have to secrete its secretion? The cells will burst. Okay, these cells will burst and then it can secrete its secretion. So, by bursting, okay, by bursting it can secrete its secretion. One example of holocrine gland is sebaceous gland. Okay, sebaceous gland. So sebaceous gland, which is secreting the oil, the cell have to burst first of all, then after that it can secrete its secretion. So this is a type of holocrine gland. Next one, if it comes to the merocrine gland, it is going to have the secretion, and without bursting it can secrete its secretion by normal exocytosis. So without bursting, okay, without bursting, just by normal exocytosis it can secrete its secretion, that is known as merocrine gland. One example I can give you, that example is salivary gland, or sorry, it can be sweat gland. Okay, sweat gland, salivary gland, you can give any example. So sweat gland, salivary gland, all of them, they are going to be merocrine gland. And if it is the apocrine gland, that means the secretion will be stored in the apical part of the epithelial cells, and whenever it need to secrete, they will secrete it by just the process of exocytosis without bursting its cell. So it's stored in apical part, okay, and whenever it is necessary it will secrete it just by exocytosis. One example I can give you is the mammary gland. So mammary gland is one example of apocrine gland, right? So we have three types of glands depending upon secretion. After that, let's just move to the next type of glands. Now just see, depending upon structure also, the glands can be of two types. One is simple, another is compound. Okay, if it is coming to the simple, it can have different types. Either it is tubular or alveolar. It is a simpler one, but yes, it can be sometimes coiled also. So coiled tubular, right? And it can be branch tubular also. And yes, it can be branch alveolar also. It can be all simple type of glands. If you see the example, then tubular glands, crypts of Lieberkühn, you can get it in the digestive system. Alveolar, that is in terminal parts of the different types of alveolar, sorry, if it is coming to the alveolar gland, then mucous gland of the frogs, that will have the alveolar type of gland. Basically it is present in the skin. Next one, if it is a simple coiled tubular, then terminal part of the sweat gland will have the simple coiled tubular gland. Next one, if it is branch tubular, then in case of the gastric glands in the stomach, they are going to have this branch tubular gland. And if it is branched alveolar, then you have the sebaceous gland, oil producing gland. Oil glands, they are the branch alveolar gland, right? Now next is move to the compound type of glands. Compound glands, they are of three types: tubular, alveolar and tubulo-alveolar. Tubular, that means it seems like this, but on that compound further divisions will occur, right? So this is the compound tubular, then compound alveolar and tubulo-alveolar or alveolo-tubular. So what happened in tubular type of gland, we have the mammary glands or prototherians. Prototherians, one example I have given already in the mammalia, that is in case of the prototherians. One example is platypus. In the platypus, the mammary gland basically is the tubular compound gland. Next one, if it is the alveolar, then it is present in the salivary glands are the examples, but two of them only, that is the submaxillary and sublingual, they are only the alveolar compound gland. If it is the parotid gland, then it will be known as the tubuloalveolar gland. And also in the male reproductive system, corpus gland. In the female reproductive system, Bartholin's gland. These are the example of the tubuloalveolar glands. It is the most complex type of compound type of glands. So these are the, depending upon structures, we have this type of gland. Now the third basis we can see, depending upon you can see depending upon the presence of ducts, we can have two type of gland. One is exocrine, another is endocrine. Okay, so what are the exocrine gland and what is the endocrine glands? Okay, if it is the exocrine glands, remember they are going to have the ducts. Okay, if it is the endocrine glands, then yes, the ducts will be not present. If it comes to the exocrine gland, then basically they are releasing the enzyme, right? And if it comes to the endocrine gland, that will release the hormones, right? This is one important point. Next one, if it is coming to the exocrine gland, then their target organ means when it is going to secrete its secretion. So target organ is very much near to the exocrine gland, and if it is coming to the endocrine gland, the target organ will be present very far away from the gland. What is the reason? If you see one example I have given, that yeah, if it is coming to the gastric glands, so gastric glands are present on the gastric wall and it will secrete its secretion on the stomach itself, isn't that? But if it comes to the endocrine glands, one example I can give, this is pituitary gland. Pituitary gland will secrete its secretion and it has to suppose come to the region of the kidney. So just above the kidney, it is going to have one gland that is known as adrenal gland. So from the pituitary, from head, from this brain region up to it might be few even some centimeters, 30 for more than 90 meters it has to travel, right? 90 centimeters it has to travel. So what is that? This is nothing but the endocrine gland. The target organ will be far away. Okay, it is suppose the organ suppose the organ is pituitary gland present in the brain, and then it has to secrete its secretion on the kidney. So just see the distance, isn't that? So this is the endocrine gland. The secretion, this is somewhere else occurring, and the function that has to occur in somewhere else, that will be very much away. The reason is the enzymes is having high molecular weight, so that's why it cannot be transported by the blood, and if it comes to the endocrine gland, then easily it can be transported, right? So this is the another characteristics of the epithelial tissue, that epithelial tissues, they have one function, that it is a modified gland. That means epithelial tissue can convert itself into a gland. Next one, let's just move to the next characteristics of epithelial tissue. Next, just move to the next characteristics of epithelial tissue, that this epithelial tissue can develop different type of junctions. Okay, so remember what is junction? Junction means if it comes to the epithelial tissue, remember it always forms the lining of the organs. Okay, so if it need to form one single layer around, suppose one organ, heart or lung or kidney, they have to be a single layer, isn't that? So if it need to form a suppose single layer of tissues, they have to be attached so much tightly to each other, right? If it is suppose a blood vessel, right? So in case of the blood vessel, what we have, the lining of the blood vessel or lymphatic vessel, this is also epithelial tissue. So what happened to the epithelial tissue? They form different type of junctions. So depending upon junctions also, you can see three different types. What are they? One is known as tight junction, second one is known as gap junction, and the third type of junction is known as adherent junction. Okay, so what is tight junction? See, if it comes to the tight junction, then the cells will be so much close to each other. Suppose this is the intercellular space now. Now, if it comes to the tight junction, the two space. So here in between the two cells, we have this much space now. So this is the intercellular space. The intercellular space gets so decreased, and the two plasma membrane fuse to form only one membrane, right? So it forms the tight junction. So in case of that tight junction, the cells will attach to each other so tightly that it will prevent leakage across it. So if you see, in case of the blood vessel, the lining of the blood vessel will have tight junction so that blood cannot diffuse, so that the blood or lymph cannot diffuse into outside. But yes, then also some amount of plasma will still diffuse, that will form the lymph later on, but yes, to certain extent it will prevent leakage. Okay, so what is tight junction? Tight junctions are the junctions where it is present in between the two cells, decreasing its intercellular space so suppose narrowly, and so it's attached to each other so that the two plasma membranes will not have any intercellular space, and it is present in the regions where somewhere lining where inside liquid is flowing. It is preventing leakage. Okay, remember, it prevent leakage. Okay, so this is the tight junction. Second type, C, it is known as the gap junction. So in case of gap junction, what happens? See, suppose we have two cells, right? In between the two cells, they have to suppose transport the nutrients, or suppose some of the secretion, oil or something, anything. Suppose they have to transport a secretion from one cell to the next cell. If in between the two cells there is no connection, then what can happen? That they have to come outside the plasma membrane, they require energy for that, and another cell to receive that secretion, they also have to require some type of protein who will accept all those proteins, or that process will be complex. So that's why what happened, to easier flow of certain secretion from one cell to the next cell, it develops some type of junction that is known as gap junction, so that it can exchange the secretions. It develops some intercellular bridges. Okay, so in certain region we are going to see the gap junction where the exchange of secretions will occur, and it forms some intercellular bridges, that is known as gap junction. Now after that, next just move to the adherent junction. Adherent junction means, here we can see that cells, they will be attached to each other with the help of lots of varieties of things. Like suppose they will form, suppose this is one type of two cells, they have to be attached. So if the two cells will be attached like this, at any time they can detach, isn't that? If the cells will form some type of interdigitations, then it will be very much difficult to detach from each other, right? So what's happened, they will form some type of interdigitation so that the cells will not get detached from each other. So this is one type of adherent junction, so that one cell can be attached, adhere to the next cell. Okay, next one, see, this is also one type of cell where some type of teaching substances, some teaching microorganisms are present, like desmosomes or hemidesmosomes. Okay, so those desmosomes and hemidesmosomes, they will actually going to glue or stitch the cell with the neighboring cell. So these are the interdigitations. Okay, they are forming some type of finger-like projection so that one cell can attach to the next, and it can also the desmosomes and desmosomes and hemidesmosomes, it forms actually the stitching like substance, so that one cell can attach to the another cell, neighboring cell. What is that? That is known as adherent type of junction. So In this adherent junction, what happened? One cell adhere to the next cell by some interdislocations, desmosomes, hemidesmosomes, etc. So this is the next type of character. Next character of epithelial tissue. See, it has, to a little extent, it has the power of regeneration. Now what is regeneration? Suppose in your mouth, the lining of the buccal cavity, it is also have the epithelial tissue. It is the non-keratinized squamous epithelial compound tissue. I will tell you later on. So what happened to that type of epithelial tissue? See, suppose you have taken a hot sip of tea, then what happened? This region, suppose it get burnt, we have high sensation, isn't it? Because that region have the burnt, or that cell layer that get burnt. So what happened? That some cells, they will regenerate in a very faster rate. The beneath layer, that means the dermis layer, they will undergo rapid division, mitosis division, and it will convert and it will form another layer which have get burnt. Okay, so they have a little power of regeneration. Suppose in the oral cavity, some hot things or hot food particle, they burns the cell layer, then one very important thing happened, that is the regeneration. Some dermis cell layer form, regenerate the above epidermis layer. Next one, see, it has also the power of absorption. Absorption means it can able to absorb. See, if you see the lining of the intestine, you can see the intestine. In the small intestine, we have the finger-like projections called villi. So why villi is present? So that it can increase the surface area, so that we can get enough time to absorb the digested food material. So that's why this epithelial tissue develop the villi and microvilli, so that we can have efficient absorption, right? Next one, this epithelium can be transportive in nature. Transportive in nature means it helps in transportation of some things, some compounds or some secretions from one region to the next region. And wherever this epithelial tissue have to transport something, it develops some cilia, right? So some cells, actually some cells of the epithelium have some very small hair-like projections. They are known as cilia, and that cilia help in transporting something. Suppose if you see the example of the female reproductive system. So in case of the female reproductive system, what happened? Ovary produce the ovum, and that ovum will be catched by the fallopian tube. Then how is it possible that the ovum can move from this region to this region? It is actually nothing but the fallopian tube. Fallopian tube have cilia, and that cilia will beat and transport the ovum from one region to the next region, right? So this is nothing but the epithelial tissue itself who actually help in transporting something, compounds like gamete in the fallopian tube, or if you see the respiratory tract. Okay, so what happened in the respiratory tract? We constantly remove the mucus from behind to outside. So this is also the characteristics of epithelial tissue, that it is transportive in nature, right? Next, another characteristics, if it is suppose the nephron, then in the proximal and distal convoluted tubule also it help in transportation of the different ions or the urine. We will call this as the nephric filtrate from one region to the next region with the help of this epithelial tissue. Now just see another very important characteristics, that epithelial tissue can have also character, that it can increase the surface area. Okay, so just see, some of the epithelial tissues can develop a unique characteristic, that it can increase the surface area. Suppose in your body we have some organs, and those organs, they increase the surface area. Now just tell me where we are going to have the organs, where the organ itself will increase its area. It is urinary bladder, isn't that? So what happens to urinary bladder? If there is no urine, the urinary bladder get very small, And if the urine start to fail at one period of time, the urinary bladder will increase. So how is it possible that around the urinary bladder we have the epithelial tissues, and if the epithelial tissue, suppose the urinary bladder get suppose enlarged, what will happen to the epithelial tissue? Will that got burst or some cracks happen inside or outside? No. What happened that this epithelial tissue which is present on those areas, those organs who can increase the surface area, they have this epithelial tissue, and a specific type of epithelial tissue is present in those organs, suppose the urinary bladder, who can increase the surface area, is known as the transitional epithelium. Okay. So what is the transitional epithelium? Transitional epithelium have a unique characteristics that it can increase the surface area in the regions of urinary bladder. Okay. So this is one characteristics. Then all the characteristics we have already discussed. These are all about the characteristics of epithelial tissue. Now let's just move to the next part, that is the classification of epithelial tissue. After that, let's just move to the last part, that is the classification of the epithelial tissue. So if it comes to the epithelial tissue, it is broadly divided into two types. One is the simple, another is compound. One thing you have to remember, that if it is a simple epithelium, it is made up of only one layer of cell, and if it is a compound epithelium, it is going to have more than one layer. Okay. So if it is a simple epithelium, depending upon the structure, shape of the cells of epithelium, it is going to be different types, and if it is compound also, we are going to see different types of compound epithelium. Now first of all, just see the simple epithelium, which is divided into this 3, 4, 5, 6 type of epithelium. First of all, we have the squamous epithelium. The squamous epithelial cells, they are hexagonal in nature. There are hexagonal cells present, and just behind that we are going to have the basement membrane. So basement membrane will present everywhere. Now if it is a squamous type of epithelium, it is present. See, from here the location is very much important, where it is present. If it is the squamous epithelium, it is present in the wall of the blood vessel, air sacs of lung, lymphatic vessels, Bowman's capsule, and coelomic cavities. So in all those areas we are going to have the hexagonal cells called as the simple squamous epithelium. Now the second type of epithelial tissue, simple type of epithelial tissue, is cuboidal. So cuboidal cells will be cube-like, as it is seen here. Now this cuboidal simple epithelium will be present in the tubular parts of the nephron, then the ducts of the glands, thyroid follicle, PCT and DCT. PCT means proximal convoluted tubule, and DCT means distal convoluted tubule of the nephron. We are going to have the cuboidal type of simple epithelium. The next type of simple epithelium is columnar type of epithelial tissue, where you can see that that columnar type of epithelium, it is the brush bordered epithelium of the intestine. So in the intestine we are going to have the brush bordered epithelium. Even in some regions of PCT also we have the brush bordered epithelium, but it is not that cuboidal. So columnar type of simple epithelium, basically it is found in the small intestine. Remember that. Next one, come to the ciliated. See, actually cuboidal and columnar type of epithelial tissue can be simple or ciliated. If it is a simple type, then these are the simple type of cuboidal and columnar, and if it is ciliated, then you can have ciliated cuboidal and ciliated columnar. If it is the ciliated cuboidal, then it will be present in the small bronchioles. It is a part of the respiratory tract. And then if it is the columnar ciliated type of epithelium, it is present in the fallopian tube and the respiratory tract. We are going to have the ciliated type of simple epithelium. Next type of simple epithelium is pseudostratified. One thing you just need to remember, pseudo means what? Pseudo means false, isn't that? So it is called as pseudostratified. Stratified means compound epithelium. Okay. So compound epithelium we can also call as stratified. Okay. So stratified false stratified means it is actually the simple epithelium. But what happened? It seems like a compound epithelium, but actually it is a simple epithelium. Why? Because it is made up of one layer. But it seems like having more than one layer, but actually it is not like that. Some of the cells, they are smaller, some of the cells, they are longer. So that's why all of the cells, they will be present on the same basement membrane, but all the cells will not face the free surface. So that's why it seems like having more than one layer, but actually it is not. It is a single simple layer which is going to have varieties of size or the length of the cell. So that's why it may seem having more than one layer, but actually it is a single layer. So what is that pseudostratified type of simple epithelium? It is present in the urethra of human male and parotid gland. Parotid gland is the larger salivary gland where you can see pseudostratified type of simple epithelium. The next type of simple epithelium is actually known as glandular epithelium, where I have given all the types of glandular epithelium. One thing I left, that is the glandular epithelial tissues can be also of two types depending upon the cell type, that means cell number type. So depending upon, so I will give you here, you have to write there on the types of glands that depending upon the number of cells. Okay, depending upon the number of cells, the glandular simple epithelium can be of two types. One is the unicellular type of glandular epithelium and another is the multicellular type of glandular epithelium. If it is the unicellular, then you have to remember that is the goblet cell. So goblet cell, you must have known what is goblet cell. It secretes the mucus in the gastrointestinal tract. That is the goblet cell present in the stomach region. So what is that? This is unicellular gland, and rest of all of the glands, that will be all multicellular. So one thing only I left in the gland part, other than depending upon the secretion, depending upon the structure, I have given all the types of glandular tissues. Now come to the compound epithelium. Compound epithelium will be of the next type, that is squamous and transitional. If it is squamous, then it can have, okay, I told about the types of keratinized and non-keratinized. If it is going to have more than one layer, suppose it is the compound epithelium, and if the cells are hexagonal, that means it is the squamous type of compound epithelium. Now what happened, we are going to have on the compound epithelium, suppose you have 50 layers. So beneath layer, that will be a single layer, that will be known as dermis, and above that we have suppose more than 30, 40, 50 layers, that will be the epidermis. So epidermis layers, as we go above, what will happen, the cells will start to get less nutrients and gases. So that's why they have to deposit in order to not be engulfed by the pathogen. That's why they develop a keratin layer and it become keratinized. So that squamous epithelium can be of two types. If keratinized deposition do not occur, it will be known as non-keratinized squamous compound epithelial tissue, and if keratin deposition occurs, suppose on your skin, that will be known as the keratinized squamous epithelium. So where we will see the non-keratinized type of squamous epithelial tissue, it will be the buccal cavity, then the pharynx region, and first part of the esophagus. We are going to have the non-keratinized type of compound epithelium, and if it is keratinized, then yes, this will be the surface of the skin where we have the keratin deposition, due to what the cells become more and more protective so that easily the microbes cannot invade. Right? Now the last type of compound epithelium is transitional. As I already have told you, what is the main characteristics of transitional epithelium? That the transitional epithelium can increase the surface area to a huge extent. If you see one example, that is urinary bladder, then urinary bladder, if urine is not present, then the size is very small, and if it suppose have filled with urine, then that structure will increase to an enormous extent. Right? So that's why you can see that beneath it can have cuboidal, columnar or hexagonal squamous cell, but on the surface of the transitional epithelium always very flat oval cells will be present, so that from above the another type of tissues can easily glide. So easily glide the cells, another tissues easily can glide over the transitional epithelium. That's why it can increase the surface area to a huge extent, right? So that's why you just need to remember the transitional epithelium, the tissues on the surface, it is going to have the flat oval cells where it can actually easily allow the transportation, or not transportation, easily allow the gliding of the other type of tissue in order to increase its own organ surface area. Okay, so that is known as a transitional epithelium, where we are going to have the transitional epithelium, that is the urinary bladder and uterus. Okay, so ureter. So in those area, what we are going to have the transitional epithelium. So that's all about the epithelial tissue. Hope you have understood. So classification from this chapter, you just remember this chart is going to be very much important, because from this regions the locations are going to come. Okay, so that's all about the epithelial tissue. Hope you have understood. Next video we will start with connective tissue. So that's all about epithelial tissue. Thank you.